Hi friends, it's Shari. Today I'm popping in with a Christmas platform pop-up card using colored pencils for something a little bit different. The two stamp sets I'm using today is Den Sweet Den with the little bears and Christmas Dreams with the tree and the fireplace and a couple other little accessory items. Since I am coloring with colored pencils today, I am stamping with black licorice ink. So this is not the ink we use when we are coloring with Copics, but this ink works perfect for colored pencils and the techniques I'll do today. So I just stamped those onto some Nina Solar White cardstock, just like I do with my Copics. But of course today I'm using my Prismacolored colored pencils. Now I will be blending with some gamsol. Mine is in this Inky Antics bottle. I keep this bottle because I like the little dauber that's on top. But I just keep refilling it with this gamsol that I just got at the art store. So you can use either one. Now I'm using my Prismacolored colored pencils today. You can use any brand colored pencil. Prismacolors are pretty budget friendly, but you can also use more expensive or cheaper pencils and just try out and see what works for you. Now the trick to colored pencils that I have found is to start light and build your color up. So of course I'm starting with this lighter green and kind of going all over with a lighter layer of the green. I'm not pushing too hard. I don't want to put too much of that color down from that pencil. Then I'm going to come in with my darker color and do where my shadows would be, just like I would do with my markers. A lot of times we start with our dark color first with the markers and then blend it out, and I'm doing the opposite with my pencils. So I'm just going under each of the layers of the tree and under the ornaments. Now it does look kind of rough, but I'm going to blend that out with my gamsol eventually. I will show you that you can go back in with that lighter color and start to color over the darker color. And you'll start to blend the two colors together a little bit, and you'll work out that kind of harsh line that I created. I'm not going to do too much of that on this because I plan on using the gamsol to make it this nice, soft, dreamy look. So here I have my little paper stump piece, and I have one for every color. So this is my green one. And you can see the difference between that top piece and the pieces at the bottom where I have not blended the two colors together. So gamsol just breaks down the wax a little bit and moves the pigment together. So you get that shiny look from your pencils sometimes, and this is actually going to give you a nice soft look without that shine. So you can see how this is looking nice and blended, and you get that really soft kind of what I call like a storybook kind of look. And then you can always add more. So I'm going back in with my dark color again, going right underneath the boughs of the tree and adding a little more darkness. It's so easy to add more, but it is really hard to take it away. So that is just something to remember when using colored pencils. You can always go back and add more color or darkness, but it's really hard to take it away once it's there. Now I will tell you that I am no expert at colored pencils. I just enjoy coloring with them for a different look. So this is some pretty simple coloring in today's video. I did leave most all of my coloring in, however, so it is a bit on the long side. I will not be offended if you do want to skip ahead to the assembly of the platform pop-up card later in this video. Now for the star, I'm just using 2 shades of yellow. It's really hard to see because for the star, I actually did put a lot of pressure on my yellow pencil and put a lot of color down. And I'm doing the same for these little ornaments. I'm putting a lot of the red down. But you're going to see on the larger ornaments, I'm going to use the exact same pencil and just use a lighter hand. So it's going to look sort of pinky. And you are going to see the strokes of the pencil a little bit. But that is until we use that gamsol to blend it out. And you'll get this nice soft look to those ornaments. And everything will be nice and smooth. So see how much that changes it once you add that gamsol to it. And like I said, this is the same exact pencil. I didn't even change colors. It's just more pressure for these little ones and putting more pigment down and less for the larger ones. And you get a lighter color of that same shade. Now I'm moving on to the trunk of my tree, and for this I'm going to do it opposite than I did the green part of the tree by putting my dark color down first. Actually, that was the same colored pencil, just harder pressure and lighter, but now I'm going in with a darker one. And then of course, I'm going to blend it together and you're not going to see those harsh lines of the pencil. So here is my tree all put together. You can kind of see the shine on those little ornaments that I didn't use the gamsol on and the star. So what I did is I just went over them with that gamsol and just took that shine off so that everything on the tree matches. Now I'm going to move on to some of my other images, and just so I'm not continually repeating myself, telling you exactly what I'm doing because it gets pretty repetitive, I'll just put some Christmas music on and you can watch some coloring. And then I'll pipe in when I have some tips to share. So this is really fun right here. I'm going to actually use two very different colors. So you can see I'm putting some yellow down. This is sort of my glow of my fire. And then I'm going to pull in a gray and sort of blend the two colors together. And I do think that this is something that at least I struggle with markers, is blending two very different colors together. So you get this transition between the two. But I think it's a lot easier to do with pencils. So you can see there, it all looks gray, but then you get kind of the yellow. Because unlike markers, these are not going to push each other out of the way. They're going to layer on top of each other, and you're going to get both tones of both pencils. Now, if you color directly over your stamping like I did here on the little note, it will dull those letters, but once you go over with the gamsol, they will darken back up just a bit. I'm going to be doing the same thing on the noses of the bears. Now my little bear ended up a little more red than I wanted, so I'm just blending in with a brown pencil to tone out the red and give myself a new color. So I did want to show you what it would look like if you just kept going over and blending the colors with your pencils. That is what it looks like on that right side there. If you just use pencils and don't use the gamsol to blend it out, you can still get a nice soft look. It just takes a little more time and a little more layers of your pencil and blending the colors together. So I have all my images colored. I actually don't have the mug colored yet. I am going to color that red, but I'm going in with a black glaze pen and giving the bears a cute little black shiny nose. You can see how that black glaze just makes it a shiny nose and they really stand out. And then I'm also going to go in with a white gel pen and add some details. So I'm just adding details to those bricks, giving them a little bit of texture with dots. I'll also add some shine to my ornaments. And then I am going to add a little snowflake detail on my mug and kind of decorate that up a little bit. So now that everything is colored and I have my little details, I can use the coordinating dies to cut everything out, including the little hands of the bear because he's going to hold that cute little mug that I added that snowflake to. Now I can work on the platform pop-up part of my card, and I am using this pattern paper from the Nitpicky Winter collection. This is the red one. This is Warm Beanie, I believe. So I've cut this from some 12 by 12 paper so that I have a nice pattern on both sides, and I'm going to be using that smaller pattern with the snowflake sweater pattern on it for the outside of the box. I'm also cutting a piece of the green 12 by 12 pattern paper. This one has a smaller pattern on it. I'm just cutting that top piece of the platform pop-up, so the piece that has the little slot on it. And then I'm trimming off along the score lines. And if they're kind of hard to see, you can fold them and they're a little bit easier to see, but I only need that trapezoid shape to put on the platform part of my platform pop-up to give the look of a different color on that horizontal surface. So I'll just add some adhesive and add that to each of these trapezoid shaped pieces, lining up that slot where my little T's are going to go for my images to stick on. So now that I have both of these pieces done, I can move on to those little T's. I've cut 3 of those, and I've cut 3 of that little hillside shape from that same green Nitpicky pattern paper. And I'm just adding some double-sided tape across the top of that T. And then I'll go ahead and add my little green hillsides, or I guess we should say this is the carpet of the den, to each of the T's. So the patterns are going to be a little bit different, but a lot of it is going to be covered up by the images that I'm adhering. So I'm not really worried about the fact that my sweater patterns are different. This just gives it some nice, fun texture. So I have my 3, and then I'm going to put my double-sided adhesive onto the tabs of the box pieces. So you need it on that long tab and the short tab, just those 2 places. I've already folded on all my score lines previously. And then I can add a little bit to the bottom of 2 of these T pieces. And then the one that goes in the center, I'm chopping that little fold off. So I'm just setting that one aside because it's going to go in the middle. So I'll fold that on the score line, and this is going to be my front piece. So I've got this lined up facing the front side, and then I just folded it down and folded it over. Now this is my back side, so I've got it turned the other direction, and I want to make sure that I have this little hill facing that center part of the box. And then I can just press that down as well. So I have my 2 different pieces here. You can see how they're kind of lined up different. And I'll just finish off closing these up by pulling that liner paper off and folding up the outside of the box. Then I can add some adhesive all over that center rectangle. This is where my center piece is going to go. And I was going to shift it to one side, but when I brought in my Christmas tree, which is what I want to put on this piece, and kind of held it to that side, I decided that the center was fine for this. It would work just perfect. So I added a little more adhesive to that where I covered it up, making sure I have plenty on that big wide surface. Then I'm pulling off the liner paper on the little tab, and I'll line my two pieces up. I kind of like to use my grid mat, bump these two together and fold that back over. Then I can remove it off the other side. And then I'll line up the two rectangle squares where I put all that adhesive, and then I'll finish it off by closing it up on that right side. So there is my complete box. And then I can add my pieces together, my little images. So I'm adding my bow to my fireplace here. Also my little cookies with my note to Santa are going to sit on top of the mantle. This is going to go on the very back piece. And then of course I have the little mug for the bear. And what I thought was fun was I'm just going to put it under one of the paws so it looks like the other paw is holding the handle. So I'll just use liquid glue to add these to my pieces. I'm adding that fireplace centered up on the backmost piece, the Christmas tree to the left on the center piece, and then the bear to the right on the front piece. And that way it frames up the fireplace nicely. And then of course I have my little sleepy bear, and he's going to go in the floor on the very front. So here's my complete little box, but once I got it all together, I felt like it needed like a backdrop to it, like the walls of the den. So I'm using the Platform Pop-Up add-on. I've cut that from some craft cardstock, and then I'm going to run it through with the Stitch Wood Grain backdrop to give me those stitched wood grain lines. Now I'm using some tea dye distress ink, and I will also use the Gathered Twig, which is the darker on the left side, to kind of add some darker color. I just felt like the craft was a little too light, and when I looked at the paper bag cardstock, I thought it was a little too dark. But also, I really like the inking because it brings out those stitched wood grain lines. Now I'm folding on the score lines, and I'm being very careful because when you have those stitched lines in there, it kind of wants to fold on those. So just be very careful folding those on the straight scored lines. And then I'm adding a line of that really thin double-sided tape just to the very, very bottom. This is going to fit on the inside face of that edge of my box. So I'll just pull off that liner paper, and then you can easily just line it up and tuck it into that back part on the inside of the scalloped edge at the top of the box. And if you have a hard time getting in there to kind of stick it together, I'll just flatten it back out and make sure I have that all nice and stuck down. So now you can see how that background really helps the look of this card. So it folds down nicely, and then it pops up with this cute little Christmas scene. But of course, no Christmas card is complete without a bit of glitter and sparkle. So I'm adding some stickles to the star and the ornaments and the fire. Now, if I had thought of this ahead of time, I would have added it first and let it dry before I assembled my card. But I always add my glitter at the end, and that's just how I work. For this sentiment, I'm using Have a Cozy Christmas. This is from the Den Sweet Den stamp set, and this actually fits perfectly inside this stitched rectangle that fits on the front of the platform pop-up. So I'll just hold that in place with a little bit of tape and die cut that, and then add it with a little bit of liquid glue to the front of my box. And then here is my finished Christmas platform pop-up. I love those cute images. I love the coloring with the colored pencils, and that sweater nitpicky paper and that wood grain background are just perfect. So I hope you've enjoyed today's video, and maybe this will inspire you to try out colored pencils, but of course you can always color with Copics and make a super sweet, cute Christmas card as well. Thanks so much for watching. Have an amazing day and a Merry Christmas. Bye!